She didn't scream at first. It was the kind of silence that hurt more than sound. Then her voice broke, loud enough to stop people mid-step on the sidewalk outside the Harborview Hotel. "Please, don't leave me here. Not again." Heads turned. A few whispered. No one stepped closer. They just watched her cry on the cold concrete, as if her heartbreak was a show. Even the doorman pretended not to notice. That's when he stopped walking. Grayson wasn't known for stopping. He lived in one motion, forward, never looking back, never letting anything reach him. But the sound of her pain did. For a second the street noise faded. Car horns, footsteps, laughter from the hotel bar patio. All of it fell away. Just her. And him. And the question hanging between them. What happened to her? And why did it shake him? Before we go deeper, do something for me real quick. Comment where you're watching from and what time it is right now. And if you're new here, subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Because this story doesn't unfold the way you think. Now, back to that moment. Grayson steps toward her. Slow, careful, like approaching something fragile. He doesn't know her name yet, but in the next few minutes, she will change everything. He took one more step toward her, enough to stand between her and the eyes that watched without helping. Her breath shook, not loud anymore, just unsteady, like each inhale might break her again. The cold concrete pressed through the thin fabric of her dress, and the streetlight above them flickered, washing everything in a soft, uneven glow. She didn't look up at him at first. She kept her face hidden behind her hands, shoulders trembling. People continued moving past, cars sliding by, a bus hissing at the curb, the city refusing to pause for anyone's pain. Grayson stayed still. His coat hung open in the autumn wind, the edges lifted slightly as if the breeze was trying to pull him away, but he didn't move. His silence wasn't confused or hesitant. It was observant, present. He was studying the shape of the moment, the way he studied everything that mattered. Finally, she lowered her hands. Her eyes were red, lashes wet, but there was something controlled beneath the collapse. Not broken, just tired of carrying whatever had gotten her there. She didn't ask who he was. She didn't thank him for stopping. She didn't speak at all. A black SUV rolled to a stop at the hotel entrance. A valet jogged toward it. Laughter spilled from the lobby behind them as a group stepped out from the bar. Perfume, heels, champagne glasses clinking. The world kept going. She stood, slowly, as though her body had to negotiate every movement. For a moment, they were close enough that the warmth of his coat brushed her sleeve. She didn't step back. He didn't step forward. She looked past him, toward the bright hotel doors she couldn't bring herself to enter again. Her voice came quiet, almost steady now. "I just need to leave here." He gave a small nod. Not agreement, not sympathy, just understanding. No questions, no assumptions, no demand for explanation. She breathed out, the kind of breath that comes after holding too much inside. They walked together toward the curb, not side by side, but close enough to be connected by the silence between them. A rideshare driver leaned against his car door, scrolling his phone, waiting for someone else. She hesitated, unsure if she should move closer or stay where she was. Grayson lifted his hand slightly, not a gesture of command, but direction. He stepped forward first, allowing her to follow, not leading her, just clearing the path. The driver straightened when he saw Grayson. Recognition flickered, maybe from business newspapers, maybe from whispered conversations about who moved money through the city and who didn't. No one spoke. The door opened. She paused before getting in, glancing back at the hotel one last time, something left behind there, something unfinished. Then she lowered her head and stepped inside. When Grayson closed the door, her reflection in the tinted glass looked different, smaller, distant, as if the vehicle was already carrying her away from the life she had walked into the street to escape. He stood on the curb for a moment after the car pulled away. The night air was colder now. He didn't know her name. But the echo of her cry, the first sound that stopped him, stayed in the space between his ribs like a memory that had been waiting to surface. He turned and walked back into the city lights, but the night didn't feel the same anymore. The rideshare carried her away, but the night did not settle back into what it had been. Not for him. Grayson walked for several blocks without choosing a direction. The city was loud, but his thoughts were louder. Not chaotic, just persistent. Something in that moment lingered, like unfinished business pressing against the back of the mind. The next morning he sat in a corner booth of a small cafe tucked between a florist and a wine shop on West 84th. The kind of place where the regular customers all recognized each other's coats before their faces. A quiet routine stop, one of the few spaces he allowed himself to exist without expectation. Steam curled from his coffee. The newspaper sat open but unread. The door chimed. She walked in. Not dramatic, not staged. No cinematic coincidence, just the city folding in on itself in the way it sometimes does. She didn't see him at first. She stood near the counter, fingers tapping lightly on her phone. Her hair was pulled back, still damp from a quick shower, jacket too thin for the weather. She looked composed, but her eyes held the tiredness of someone who had not slept deeply. He didn't move. He waited. When she finally noticed him, her expression didn't shift into embarrassment or surprise, just recognition, a quiet acknowledgement that the world sometimes loops back on itself. She approached his table slowly. "May I sit?" He gestured to the seat across from him. No smile, no greeting, just permission. She sat with her hands in her lap, fingers intertwined as if holding them still kept the rest of her steady. They didn't speak for a long minute. Not an awkward pause, a shared one. Outside, a bus rumbled past. A man in a suit jogged across the street, late for something that probably mattered to someone. The world kept moving, but their table stayed still. She finally exhaled, and her voice was soft but sure. "I wasn't crying because of him." No explanation of who him was, no details, just a boundary laid down with care. Grayson nodded once, not asking her to continue. She looked out the window, the glass fogging slightly with her breath. "I thought I could go in there. I thought I was ready to be in the same place with everything I left behind, but it was too much." The barista set a cup of tea in front of her. She hadn't ordered yet, but the staff knew. Or she had been there before, or maybe she simply looked like someone who needed tea. Her hands curled around the warm ceramic. "I don't want you to think I'm—" She paused, searching for the right shape of the sentence. "Fragile." He didn't respond at first. He studied her expression, the control under the calm. "You stood up," he said, "even when it hurt." That was all. No comfort, no pity, no unnecessary softness. She held his gaze for the first time. There was a steadiness in her now, the kind that comes after the storm, when the air feels clearer but the ground is still wet. They sat in quiet again. Finally she spoke. "My name is Naomi." He didn't offer his in return. She already knew it. Everyone did in one way or another, but she said it anyway. Grayson. Just his name. No context, no title, no weight. Something small shifted between them. Not closeness, recognition. The sense that whatever path they were on had started before either of them noticed. Outside, the morning light stretched across the sidewalk, slowly warming the frost on the windows. Naomi took a sip of her tea. Grayson folded his newspaper. No dramatic decision was made, no promises, no confessions. Just two people sitting in the quiet, the city moving around them, unaware that something had begun. By evening, the city had shifted into its sharper version. Streetlights flickered on. Taxi horns echoed in short, clipped bursts. Windows in skyscrapers glowed like stacked constellations. Grayson's penthouse sat on the 52nd floor of a tower that overlooked the river. Floor-to-ceiling glass, rooms arranged with precision, Everything in muted tones, steel, slate, deep wood, and quiet light. It was beautiful. It was expensive. It was empty. He dropped his keys into a small dish on the console near the door. The sound echoed more than it should have, the kind of echo that reminded you how much space was being lived in by just one person. The city hummed outside, but inside there was only stillness. He loosened his tie, removed his watch. Button by button, the suit came off like armor placed on the floor for the night. The kitchen was immaculate, untouched, except for the single coffee mug drying on the rack. Meals were either ordered in or prepared by someone who came when he wasn't home, stocking the fridge with things he rarely ate. His life had the shape of comfort, but not the feeling of it. He walked to the balcony, sliding open the glass door. The wind was cold. The river below caught the city lights in ribbons that moved with the tide. His phone buzzed once. A calendar notification. A charity event next week. Another dinner with board members. Meetings scheduled in 15-minute increments stretching into the following month. It was a life structured down to the minute. He closed the notification without opening it. His reflection appeared faintly in the balcony glass. Sharp jaw, steady eyes, controlled posture, the kind of man people listened to when he spoke. But here, alone, there was no voice to reach, just silence. He returned inside and walked through the main hallway, past the library he barely used, past the piano he never learned to play, past the guest wing that had never held a guest. Everything looked lived in, but nothing felt lived with. He paused at the small table near the window, the one place in the penthouse that was not curated, not designed. A single photograph sat in a plain frame. Two boys on a lake dock, one of them younger, smiling without restraint. The other, Grayson, already composed, already still. The dock behind them was gone now. The lake was a development site. The boy beside him, a memory carved into the timeline of his life before everything changed. He looked away. A soft vibration came from his phone, this time a message. Naomi, thank you for earlier. No punctuation, no detail, no request, just acknowledgement. He read it once, then again, not because of what it said, but what it didn't say. He typed nothing back. He set the phone down. The apartment was quiet again. Outside, the river kept moving. Morning came without urgency. Light filtered through the tall windows in slow bands, moving across the hardwood floor like time passing in quiet motion. Grayson sat at the dining table with a cup of coffee cooling beside him, untouched. The newspaper lay folded, no page turned. He wasn't thinking about meetings or markets or the day's schedule lined up with exact discipline. He was thinking about the moment her voice broke. Not the loud cry on the sidewalk, the softer one, the one in the cafe, when she said, "I thought I was ready to go back." There was something familiar in that sentence. Not the story itself, but the weight beneath it. The weight of returning to a place that once broke you. His phone buzzed once work. He silenced it. He wasn't avoiding responsibility. He simply didn't want to step back into it yet. He took the elevator to the ground floor and stepped into the cold. The air was sharp, clean, and the city was already wide awake. Delivery trucks, joggers, early commuters, all moving, all unaware of the quiet shifts that happen inside private moments. He didn't tell the driver where to go. The car knew the route. The cafe door chimed with its soft bell, the same one as the day before. Naomi was there, not waiting, not looking for him, just sitting by the window with a notebook open, pen poised above the page but not writing anything. The tea beside her had steam rising in a thin, wavering trail, as though it was trying to hold on to its warmth for as long as possible. She lifted her gaze when he entered. No smile, no surprise, just recognition, the quiet kind that holds without asking. He approached. She didn't close the notebook. She didn't hide anything. She simply moved her hand, leaving the seat across from her open. He sat. The silence settled again, not heavy, just shared. Outside, a taxi splashed through a shallow puddle left from last night's rainfall. Somewhere behind them, an espresso machine hissed. A server laughed softly with someone behind the counter. Life continued in every direction but theirs. Naomi finally spoke. "I didn't plan to come back here." Grayson didn't answer. He waited. "I almost stayed in the car last night. Told the driver to just keep going, out of the city, anywhere." Her fingers tapped the edge of the notebook, once, twice, steady rhythm. "But I didn't. I chose here." Her voice didn't waver this time. Whatever had broken the night before hadn't disappeared. It had simply settled into place. He studied her face, not searching for signs of fragility, only reading the steadiness in her eyes. Naomi closed the notebook gently, placing her palm on the cover. "I don't want to explain everything," she said. "Not yet." He nodded once. Permission without pressure. She breathed in slowly, letting the warmth from the tea seep into her hands. "You didn't ask for any of this," she said. "No," he replied. "But you didn't walk away." "No thank you. No apology. Just the truth sitting between them." She looked out the window, watching the city move past. He followed her gaze. Two people in the same moment, in the same quiet, holding something neither of them had named yet. The kind of beginning that doesn't announce itself, it just starts. That evening, the restaurant on the 47th floor of the Meridian Tower was warm with low amber light. Soft conversation, muted laughter, the clink of glassware, the kind of polished, quiet money buys. The skyline stretched beyond the windows, a field of shining windows and cold blue night. Grayson sat at a private table near the back. Sloane arrived precisely on time, as she always did. She removed her gloves one finger at a time, folded them neatly beside her clutch. A woman who never rushed, never hesitated, never showed what she was thinking unless she wanted someone to see it. Her hair was pinned smoothly, her suit tailored in a way that suggested discretion more than display, a presence built from control. She didn't bother with greetings. "You've missed 2 strategy calls this week." Grayson picked up his glass but didn't drink. "Rescheduled, not missed." "Rescheduled without notice," she corrected, voice soft, not sharp. "People notice things like that." The implication sat unspoken. People notice when you change. The server approached. Sloane ordered for both of them. She always did. Not because Grayson couldn't choose, but because she had chosen before he ever arrived. It was her way of reminding him she knew his routines, his patterns, his habits. She finally set her eyes on him fully. "You were seen outside the harbor view last night. There were no cameras at that entrance, no reporters, no spotlight. So seen did not come from strangers. It came from someone who watched him, someone who reported back to her." Grayson didn't look away. "You were watching me." "I watch your surroundings," she replied. "It's my job." Her tone suggested duty. Her expression suggested ownership. Sloane lifted her glass, pausing just before taking a sip. "There was a woman with you." Not a question, a statement. Grayson didn't answer. Silence was answer enough. Sloane set her glass down with measured care. "You don't know who she is." He said nothing. "You don't know what she wants." Still nothing. Sloane leaned in just slightly, the distance between them narrowing to a line of quiet tension. "And you don't know how people will use her to get to you." The city lights caught the edge of her eyes, steady, calculating, almost gentle. Almost. Grayson finally spoke. She wasn't being used. Sloane watched him for a long moment, not surprised by the answer, just confirming it. "You think that matters?" she asked. "Intent doesn't change consequence." A plate was set between them, food arranged with careful symmetry. Neither reached for it. Sloane's voice lowered, barely above the hum of the room. "You have built a life held together by precision, one wrong person, one wrong attachment, and it doesn't break loudly, it fractures quietly, from the inside." She didn't threaten, She didn't accuse. She simply told him the way the world worked, the one they both lived in. Grayson didn't argue. He didn't need to. Sloane sat back, folding her napkin into her lap. "When you are ready," she said, "you'll understand why I'm telling you this now." She lifted her glass again. "And you'll see that I'm right." No raised voice, no anger, no dramatics, just certainty. Grayson looked out the window at the city he had spent his life climbing through, building within, mastering. Below the glittering skyline, the river moved like a quiet current of memory. He didn't think of the conversation. He didn't think of Sloane. He thought of Naomi, sitting alone with a cup of tea, hands wrapped around warmth she didn't ask for. Something had already shifted, and Sloane had noticed. 3 days passed. The city moved through them with its usual rhythm. Sirens at dawn, uneven traffic at midday, windows glowing in rows at night. But the quiet between moments felt different now, as if something unsaid was traveling with him step for step. Grayson didn't go back to the cafe right away, not out of avoidance, not out of restraint, just waiting to see if the world would turn toward him again, or away. It turned toward him. Late afternoon. Gray sky. Wind pushing fallen leaves along the street like small, tired messengers. He ducked into a bookstore cafe in the West Village, a narrow place lined with wooden shelves and mismatched chairs, the air fragrant with roasted coffee and old paper. A bell chimed softly overhead. Naomi was there, not at a table this time. She stood near a display of used fiction paperbacks, her hand resting on the spine of a book she wasn't pulling down, just touching, as though the texture itself steadied her. She didn't look surprised when she saw him, not pleased, not unsettled. Just aware. The way two people recognize a pattern long before they admit one exists. She let her hand fall from the shelf and moved toward the back, where the cafe space opened into a small seating area. She didn't ask him to follow. She didn't need to. He took the seat beside hers, not across from her this time. The rain started outside, soft, steady, the kind that blurred the city into shapes and colors instead of people and edges. Naomi wrapped both hands around a mug. The tea was different today, darker, spiced, aromatic, something chosen, not offered. For a long time, neither spoke. She broke the silence first. "I didn't choose to come here because of you." He didn't nod. He didn't look away. "I came here because I needed a place where the city doesn't feel so loud." Her voice wasn't fragile or searching. It was simply honest. Grayson leaned back slightly, his gaze tracing the rain sliding down the window glass. "No one follows quiet," she continued, "until something forces them to." His jaw shifted, just enough to show the sentence landed. Naomi set the mug down gently. "I thought when I left the harbor view that night, I was leaving everything behind. The noise, the past, the reasons." She paused. "But it doesn't matter how far you go when the thing you're running from doesn't need distance to reach you." He didn't ask what that thing was. Instead, he asked, "Do you want to leave the city today?" She looked at him. Really looked. Not as an escape, not as a savior, not as a promise, just as a direction. Outside, the rain tapped softly on the windows. A train horn sounded faintly in the distance. She didn't smile, but the stillness in her shoulders shifted, like something heavy had moved slightly aside. "Where?" she asked. He didn't answer. Because it didn't matter. The point wasn't the destination. It was the leaving. She picked up her coat, slow and deliberate. He stood when she did. They walked out together into the rain, no umbrellas, no hurried steps, just quiet footsteps on wet pavement, as the city watched them go without understanding what had just begun. The train ride was quiet. They sat across from each other, the dark windows reflecting the carriage instead of the world outside. The city thinned into the outskirts, then into neighborhoods stitched with small shops and narrow streets. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing to say that wouldn't come too early. When they stepped onto the platform, The air was colder. The rain had stopped, leaving the pavement dark and shining. Naomi led the way, not asking if he would follow, knowing that he already was. Her building was old brick, the kind that once held warmth, but now only remembered it. A narrow hallway, worn carpet, the faint scent of someone cooking onions 2 floors down. The stairwell creaked as they climbed, not from weight, but from history. Naomi unlocked the door to her apartment. The inside was sparse, not minimalist, just temporary. A small sofa pushed against the wall, a single lamp, a folding table serving as a desk, 1 plate, 1 mug, 1 bowl, a suitcase in the corner, half zipped, clothes inside not unpacked, no pictures, no books, no trace of a life being lived here. Grayson stepped inside but did not move further. He simply looked, not with curiosity, but with recognition of what absence feels like. Naomi hung her coat on the back of a chair and exhaled, slow, controlled. "This is where I've been staying," she said. "Not living, staying." The distinction held weight. She walked to the kitchen counter and poured a glass of water, but didn't drink it. She held it in both hands like something to anchor her. "People think when you leave somewhere, you begin again," she said quietly. "But I haven't begun anything." The refrigerator hummed softly in the silence that followed. She placed the glass down. Her hands were steady now. Grayson glanced at the suitcase, then at the empty walls, then at her. There were questions to ask, but none that would have honored the moment. Naomi sat on the arm of the sofa, not the seat, half present, half ready to leave again. "I left my hometown 6 months ago," she said. "I left quickly. I didn't take much with me. I didn't want to." Her gaze didn't go distant. She didn't drift into memory. She stayed exactly where she was, as if telling the truth required remaining in the present. "I thought if I could be somewhere no one knew me, I wouldn't feel like I was carrying anything anymore." Her voice lowered, not in weakness, but in exhaustion. "But you still carry it. Inside, quiet, heavy." The room stayed very still. A truck rumbled down the street below. Someone's television played faintly through the thin wall. The apartment felt small around the words she didn't say next. Grayson moved just enough to sit on the chair opposite her, not reaching for her, not offering comfort, just being there. Naomi looked at him then, really looked, not at the suit, not at the composure, not at the man people stepped aside for, at him. "You don't have to stay," she said. There was no plea in the sentence, only permission. "I know," he replied, and he didn't leave. The lamp cast a warm circle of light across the floor, leaving the rest of the room in quiet shadow. The kind of lighting where truth feels louder than words. Naomi's breathing softened, not calm, but no longer bracing. The suitcase in the corner waited. The walls remained empty, but the silence between them was no longer hollow. It held something now, something beginning. Days unfolded without announcement, not together, but not apart. Some mornings they found each other at the cafe without arranging to. Some evenings they walked without destination, letting the city choose the path. Conversation came in small pieces, not confessions, the kind of speaking that happens when 2 people trust silence. There were no dramatic declarations, no promises made, just presence. One evening, they sat on a bench along the East River. The water moved slow beneath the bridge, lights shimmering across its surface like restless memory. The wind carried the faint scent of salt and engine smoke. Naomi tucked her hands into the sleeves of her sweater. She wasn't shivering, just containing something inside herself. Grayson sat beside her, coat collar lifted against the cold. He watched the river, not her, but she knew he was listening. "I didn't come here to rebuild," she said quietly. "I came here to disappear." The city hummed under the bridge. A barge moved slowly downstream, its low engine rumbling like a heartbeat. Grayson didn't respond, not because he had nothing to say, but because he understood that the sentence wasn't asking for an answer. Naomi leaned back slightly, eyes following the dark water. I thought if I stayed still long enough, the past would stop trying to find me. Her voice stayed soft, not afraid, not defeated, just tired. Grayson's gaze shifted toward her, just enough for her to feel it. But it didn't, she finished. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. Her strength wasn't loud. It was the kind that comes after surviving something that tried to take the voice away. A moment stretched between them, not emotional, not romantic, simply honest. Naomi looked at him then, the faintest trace of a question passing through her expression. Why didn't you walk away that night? It wasn't accusation, it wasn't doubt, just curiosity, the simple kind. Grayson's answer came after a long pause. You didn't ask for anything. The wind carried the words away quickly, but not before she felt them land. Her breath released slowly, like a knot that had been held too long. Traffic rumbled across the bridge above them. A train screeched somewhere in the distance. The city kept moving, uncaring, unaware, but the space on the bench remained still. Naomi rested her head lightly against the back of the bench, eyes closing for just a moment. Not in sleep, in trust, not full trust, just enough. The kind that begins quietly, without ceremony. Grayson stayed beside her, not touching, not needing to. The river moved on, the night deepened, the silence held, and something between them continued to grow, not fast, not loud, but unbreakably. The next time Grayson saw Sloane, it was not planned. He was leaving the administrative lobby of Cole Tower, glass walls rising into the skyline, when she stepped out from the private elevator, coat over one arm, expression composed as if she had been waiting. She didn't greet him. Walk with me, she said. He didn't refuse. They moved through the marble corridor, voices quiet under the echo of their footsteps. You've been seen with her again? Sloane said. Not accusing, just stating. 3 times this week. Grayson didn't respond. They stepped outside into the sharp afternoon air. The city was bright in that cold, unforgiving way winter sometimes is, light without warmth. Sloane continued walking, heels careful, controlled, measured. She isn't from here, she said. She has no professional trail in the city, no connections, no known history, no accounts under her name prior to 6 months ago. She paused just long enough for implication to breathe. That kind of absence, she continued, is rarely innocent. Grayson stopped walking. Sloane stopped too, pivoting just enough to face him. There was no tension on his face, none on hers, only distance. You are trying to protect something, she said softly, but you don't know what you're protecting yet. A bus passed behind them. Pedestrians crossed the street. No one noticed the stillness between them. Sloane's voice lowered, nearly indistinguishable from the wind. People who disappear are usually running from something, or toward something. She let the silence stretch. Grayson didn't answer her. He didn't have to. She lifted her chin just slightly. I am not telling you to leave her, she said. I am telling you to see her. Not as comfort, not as sympathy, as truth. She stepped closer, close enough that the city noise fell to a hush. If you let someone inside the places you keep guarded, make sure they don't set a fire while they're there. She stepped back, leaving the space open again. Then she walked away, coat shifting with the cold wind, heels tapping sharply down the stone steps, disappearing into the stream of people. Grayson did not watch her go. He turned and walked in the opposite direction. No rush, no hesitation. The city swallowed him again. Naomi didn't know about the conversation. She sat in the same cafe by the window, tea cooling slowly between her hands. The light coming through the glass softened her features, but something in her gaze had shifted, not broken, not fearful, just aware. She looked up when he entered, No smile, no question. Just that familiar, steady recognition. He sat across from her. The silence returned, quiet, shared, unforced. But this silence felt different, not empty, weighted, waiting, the kind that comes just before something changes. The cafe was nearly empty. Late afternoon light stretched across the wooden tables, long and pale, like the day was growing tired. Naomi's tea sat untouched. Grayson didn't order anything. Neither needed the pretense of small details anymore. She rested her hands flat on the table, palms down, fingers still. Not nervous. Preparing. "I left home because staying would have broken me," she said. Her voice didn't waver. It didn't try to soften what came next. "My father owned a small contracting firm. Local projects, schools, housing developments. Nothing remarkable, nothing large. But it mattered where we were." She looked past him, not away, just through the memory. He signed onto a project that was supposed to change the whole town, something big, something everyone believed in. A breath, quiet. It collapsed, financially, legally, publicly. She paused, letting the words land before continuing. "One night our house went from doors open to every window covered, from neighbors waving to whispers in grocery aisles, from family friends to no one answering calls." She didn't look down. She didn't blink too long. "My father said it was sabotage, said someone orchestrated the failure, said he had the proof, but he never showed it." The corner of her mouth tightened, not anger, just the memory of disbelief. People stopped caring about truth. They cared about blame, and we were easy to blame. Her hands didn't move, not once. The lawsuit started. The debt came next, then the threats. A stillness, deeper now. "I left because staying became surviving." The cafe was quiet around them. The low hum of espresso machines, the faint murmur of two students studying in the corner. Life happening in small sound. She exhaled slowly. "When I took the train out of that town, I told myself I would never explain any of this to anybody, that I would let the past stay buried, that silence was safety." Her gaze found his again. "And then I saw the harbor view. I saw who was inside. I thought I could walk past. I thought I could hold myself together long enough to pretend none of it mattered anymore." A beat of silence. It did. Rain began again outside, streaking down the windows in thin, uneven lines. Naomi's next words were softer, not weaker. "I didn't leave because I was weak. I left because I refused to become what that place would have made me." Grayson listened without shifting. He didn't try to soothe. He didn't try to fill the silence. Naomi drew in one slow, quiet breath. "You don't need to know more than that right now." She didn't ask for understanding. She didn't ask for judgment, just space. Grayson nodded once, not as agreement, as acknowledgement. The past didn't loosen its grip, but it settled enough to breathe. Outside, the rain continued. The moment held, not solved, not healed, just spoken. It happened late in the evening. The city was muted by rain, the streets slick with reflected neon. Grayson was in his office, not the tower downtown, but the smaller room in his penthouse, where the lights stayed dim and the walls held the weight of silence. Papers were spread across the desk. Not work, not contracts, records, the kind that didn't appear in public filings, numbers, purchase histories, transfer trails. Sloan had left these in his care years ago. A legacy of a legacy. Things that were easier left unspoken. He hadn't looked at them in a long time. Not until Naomi's words had settled somewhere deeper than thought. He scanned page after page, names, dates, funding distributions, projects. One line stopped him. Piermont Redevelopment Initiative, 6 years ago. The same year Naomi left home. The same project her father had been tied to. The same project that collapsed. The listed lender, Cole Holdings Group. Not his doing, not his decision. his father's, and Sloane's signature was on every approval. The rain struck the window harder, as though the storm outside had leaned closer. There was no dramatic realization, no gasp, no rush of adrenaline, just understanding. Naomi hadn't found Grayson. She had collided with the consequences of his family. The elevator dinged quietly in the hallway. Soft footsteps, measured, familiar. Sloane entered the doorway, removing her gloves. "You found it," she said. Not surprised, not concerned, not guilty. Grayson didn't look up. "You knew before I met her." Not a question. Sloane stepped further into the room, closing the door behind her. The rain softened outside, becoming a steady whisper against glass. "I knew the moment you looked at her," she replied. Her tone carried no malice, only inevitability. "You were never supposed to see those files," Grayson said. Sloane stopped beside the desk, her reflection faint in the window behind him. "You were never supposed to ask for them," she answered. Silence settled between them, clean, cold, sharp. Sloane's voice remained steady. "Your father made decisions that protected the company, decisions that were necessary, hard decisions. You know the world we operate in." Grayson's eyes traced the signatures again, dates, amounts, pressure points. "You let her family be destroyed," he said. Sloane didn't flinch. "I ensured you would not be destroyed with them." No raised voice, no defense, just fact. The kind spoken by someone who believed in outcomes, not casualties. Grayson closed the folder. His hands were still. Sloane watched him. "You are letting yourself feel something that has consequences," she said softly. The rain eased, turning to a quiet mist. "She does not know," Sloane continued, "and she cannot." Grayson finally looked at her. Sloane's expression was serene, composed, calm, the look of someone who had made peace with the cost of control long ago. "If she learns what happened," Sloane said, "you lose her, and she will hate you for what your family did. A single heartbeat passed. She will think you are part of it." Silence expanded, deep and still. Sloane stepped back, her voice no longer quiet. "And you cannot fix something you did not break." She turned toward the door, pausing only once before leaving. "Protect the life you have," she said, "not the one you think you owe her." She walked out. The door closed softly. Grayson sat in the quiet, the storm fading to nothing outside. The past had not just touched the present, it had been waiting for it. The next time Grayson and Naomi met, it was not at the cafe. It was on the pier at dusk, where the river curved under the old stone bridge. The sky was washed in pale violet and deepening blue, the water dark but moving, always moving. Naomi stood with her hands in her coat pockets, hair pulled back loosely, eyes fixed somewhere across the water as though something there held an answer. Grayson joined her without speaking. The boards beneath their feet creaked with the weight of the day the city had carried. They stood side by side, close but not touching. Naomi spoke first. "I thought leaving would give me distance," she said. "But distance doesn't remove history. It just makes it quieter until something wakes it up again." The wind moved softly around them. Grayson didn't look at her. He watched the river instead. The same river that had held their silences, their beginnings, their almost confessions. Naomi exhaled slowly. "I can feel something shifting," she said. "Not between us, just around us." He didn't respond. Her voice lowered, steady. "You're holding something back." It wasn't accusation. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. Grayson's jaw tightened, just enough to show the truth had found its mark. Naomi turned to face him. Her expression was not hurt, not anger, just clarity. "I don't need to know everything," she said. "Not now, not all at once." The river moved, the evening dimmed, the air waited. "But if there's something in your past that touches mine..." Her words were quiet, precise, measured. "I need you to say it before someone else does." Silence stretched, not fragile, heavy. Grayson finally looked at her, really looked. The kind of look that says there are truths that cannot be undone once spoken. Naomi held his gaze, so he said nothing. Not because he didn't want to tell her, but because the words would have broken more than they mended. Naomi nodded once, the smallest movement, a decision forming without drama. She stepped back, not far, just enough. Her voice didn't shake. "I told you I didn't want to disappear anymore," she said, "but I won't stay in the dark." The meaning settled between them like fog rising off the water. She took another step back, then another, not turning away, just creating space. She walked down the pier slowly, leaving the sound of her footsteps behind. Grayson didn't follow. The sun dropped below the skyline. The river turned black. The lights along the bridge flickered on one by one. He stood where she had stood. The air around him felt colder now, not because of the wind, because for the first time something was slipping away that had only just begun, and he had no way to stop it. Sloane sat in the private conference room on the 51st floor, hands folded, posture perfect. The windows behind her stretched across the skyline, the city laid out in clean, obedient lines, everything measured, everything contained. Miles Hart stood across from her. Grayson's business partner, one of the few people who understood silence the same way Grayson did. He slid a folder across the table. "You didn't tell him," Miles said. Sloane didn't reach for the folder. She didn't need to. She knew what was inside. "What would that have accomplished?" she replied. Miles leaned back, arms crossed loosely, expression unreadable. "Truth," he said. Sloane allowed herself a small, brief smile. "Truth is only useful when it strengthens something," she said. "Telling him now would break him. And breaking Grayson is not in your interests. Or mine." Miles studied her, unblinking. Not convinced, not surprised. "You've been managing him," he said. Sloane's voice remained calm. "I've been protecting the structure that holds everything up." He let that settle. No argument, just observation. "And Naomi?" he asked. Sloane's eyes lifted, steady, direct, composed. "Naomi is a disruption, a gravitational one, and Grayson does not survive disruption." Miles didn't speak. Sloane continued. "If she stays, he will try to rewrite the past. You know what happens when men in power try to rewrite the past. They lose the future." Miles looked down at the folder. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. "And what happens," he asked quietly, "when someone realizes they've been controlled?" Sloane's expression didn't change. "They don't realize," she replied. "Not if the control is careful." Miles didn't respond, not verbally. The silence that followed was different this time, not shared, not comfortable. Something had shifted in the room, something Sloane didn't name. Grayson arrived home after dark. The penthouse was quiet. The city glowed below. He moved past the living room, past the glass walls, past the kitchen, straight to the office. The folders were still on the desk, the pages still open, the signatures still there. He didn't sit. He stood there, hands braced on the edge of the desk, looking down at the evidence of decisions he didn't make, but now owned simply by bearing the name attached to them. Footsteps hovered in the hallway. He didn't turn. Naomi's reflection appeared faintly in the glass. She hadn't knocked. She hadn't warned him she was coming. Her voice came quiet, steady. "I went back," she said. He didn't face her. Not yet. "To the records office," she continued. "To the town archives, to the development history." Her breathing stayed controlled, not panicked, not frantic. "Your name was there." The silence in the room tightened, tensed, not between them, around them. She stepped into the light of the office. Her eyes were calm, not accusing, just knowing. "You knew," she said softly. Grayson finally looked at her. The distance was not physical. Naomi did not cry. She did not raise her voice. She did not retreat. She simply stood there holding the weight of the truth. "I needed to hear it from you," she said. He had no words that wouldn't wound. So he said nothing, and silence answered for him. Naomi's breath trembled once, the smallest break, almost invisible. But it was there. She stepped back. This time, it was final. She didn't turn immediately. She didn't rush. She left the room slowly, the way someone leaves a place they once hoped to stay. The door closed quietly behind her. Grayson did not follow. The city lights flickered across the glass. The river below kept moving. The sky above stayed indifferent. Something had broken, not with sound, with quiet. Naomi walked until the city thinned into quieter streets. Not running, not hiding, just moving forward because stopping would mean feeling everything at once. The night air was cold. Her coat was too light for it, but she didn't shiver. She reached the bridge where the river cut through the city, the same place where silence had once held them together. She stood near the railing, watching headlights trail across the road above and the dark water turning slowly below. This time she didn't cry. The past had found her. The truth had caught up. But she was still standing. In the penthouse, Grayson remained in the office long after she left. The papers stayed on the desk. The signatures didn't change. The history didn't rewrite itself. He didn't touch the documents again. He simply stood there, hands resting on the edge of the desk, breathing in the quiet, letting the weight settle, letting the truth become something present instead of something hidden. When he finally moved, he didn't pour a drink. He didn't sit. He didn't call anyone. He walked to the balcony and stepped out into the cold night air. The city stretched beneath him. Endless lights, endless distance, endless noise. And somewhere in that sprawling maze of windows and streets, Naomi was alone. Not lost. Just alone. He had learned something he didn't say aloud. Silence protects. Silence destroys. And sometimes, silence is simply what remains. Sloane stood in her office, looking out at the skyline. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass, controlled, composed, unshaken. But her fingers pressed against the window frame just slightly, as if steadying herself. Miles watched her from the doorway. "She left," he said. Sloane didn't turn. "She'll come back," she answered. Not hopeful, certain. Miles didn't reply. He knew certainty was the most dangerous belief a person could hold. Naomi returned to the river the next morning. Not to remember, not to mourn, to choose. She stood where the boards of the pier weathered in silver and gray. The water moved slow beneath her, carrying the city's reflection downstream. Grayson arrived minutes later, not announced, not invited, just drawn. They didn't speak right away. The silence between them was different now, not shared, not empty, real, complex, earned. Naomi looked at him. Her voice was quiet, steady. "I don't hate you." Grayson exhaled once, the smallest release of breath. "But I need to understand who you are," she continued. "Not the name, not the legacy, you." He nodded, not promising, not defending, just acknowledging the path in front of them. Naomi's gaze stayed on his. "I'm not disappearing," she said. The wind moved through her hair. The river kept flowing. The city waited. "And I'm not yours," she added. Not cold, not cruel, just true. Grayson didn't flinch. "But I'm not leaving," she finished. Something settled in the space between them. Not closure, not resolution. Continuance, complicated, unfinished, alive. They stood there as the morning light rose over the water, the city waking around them. Not together, not separate. Just two lives no longer avoiding the truth of their connection. The past behind them, the future uncertain. But the story wasn't ending. It was opening.